Hello everyone, it's Jonny Khatru, and today I'm going to be listening to the second album from Argentine prog rock band 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐵 called Durazno sangrando. I've been a huge fan of their third album, El Jardin de los Presentes, for some years now. It's honestly one of my favorite albums of all time. But just a few weeks ago, I listened to their self-titled debut album for the very first time. And you can see my video with my first listen to that album with the link up here if you haven't seen it. But I absolutely loved it, unsurprisingly. It was an interesting halfway point between what I'd already heard Spinetta doing with his earlier band Almendra and the more sophisticated compositions that he would be doing later on El Jardin. In this case with some unexpected excursions into heavy metal territory along the way. Durazno sangrando, which means bleeding peach, is the band's second album releasing between the two I've already heard, and it's the last 𝐒𝐻𝐵 album for me to hear. I'll be interested to see whether it leans more towards the heavy metal of the debut or the more sophisticated jazz rock of El Jardin. Either way, I'm sure we can expect something interesting and creative all of its own. A few days ago, the original bassist of 𝐒𝐻𝐵, Manchi Rufino, was kind enough to shout out my channel on his Facebook and Instagram pages. I was really humbled and thankful for that, and I hope you enjoy this video. Please consider supporting the channel with the link in the description to buy me a coffee. I'll really appreciate it. It really does help me to be able to keep making these videos. So the first song on the album is actually a 15-minute long track, which makes it the longest track I've done on this channel so far. So I'm thinking I'll probably pause it somewhere around halfway through to give you my thoughts at that point, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts after the song is finished as well. So here we go, it's track 1 and it's called Encadenado al ánima. Well, that seems like a perfect place to pause it and give you my thoughts so far. It seems to have faded out for now. That last part was sounding very unusual, so I like where that's going. And yeah, at the very start of the song, the intro was also quite strange sounding. They definitely seem to be trying to set up a somewhat dark and unusual atmosphere, which I love. That's very appealing to me. So far, the overall sound is probably closer to the debut. We're still getting plenty of that hard rock, the kind of heavy bluesiness that showed up plenty on the debut album, but is pretty much entirely absent from El Jardin de los Presentes. And yet there are hints of the atmosphere of El Jardin popping up here and there. That kind of indefinable magic that I love about that album. You can hear it starting to pop up here. And you know, I shouldn't suggest that the debut 𝐒𝐻𝐵 album was all just hard rock and bluesiness, because there was actually plenty of jazz on that album and a lot of really interesting ideas. And so it's not too surprising to hear that same kind of approach also appearing on this album. But yeah, it's that intangible atmosphere that I love on El Jardin that I have heard so far on this song a little bit, and I'm hoping we'll hear more of it. So let's continue with the second half of this song. Here we go. What a bizarre ending. I loved that because most of that second half was quite heartfelt lead playing from Spinetta on the guitar. So juxtaposing that against the very bizarre outro there was a really nice combination. But straight from the beginning of that second half, there was some very fancy playing from the rhythm section, which I was enjoying a whole lot. And you know, most of this song was like a hard rock jam with a layer of psychedelia painted all over it. And I definitely enjoyed the whole thing, but maybe I'm left feeling that there wasn't any kind of hook inside it. I don't think I'm going to be able to remember this song from first listen. Maybe after a few more listens, things will start to hook their way into me. But rather than being a song or even an extended song, it just seems to be a set of jams with some interesting song sections mixed in there as well. There's a sound that Spinetta uses on his guitar at times in this song and a lot on El Jardin de los Presentes. I think it must be some kind of phaser or flanger perhaps. But I love this otherworldly sound that it gives Spinetta's guitar playing whenever he uses it. It just gives everything this really unusual flavor that I really enjoy. So it's a pretty wild way to start an album. That huge track with all these different unusual sections and heavy jams, emotional jams. Yeah, I did enjoy it. But let's move on to track 2, which is a comparatively much shorter song. And it's the title track, Durazno sangrando.
Partido, ya sangrando está.
Wow, I loved that. That was gorgeous. Straight from the beginning, the atmosphere was so thick. You know, they were clearly using a lot of deeply toned instruments, and I don't know how they were making that sound with the production, but the atmosphere was just so thick and moody. It makes the cover art of this album make so much sense because it really sounded like that looks, you know, like these deep oranges, like it's a thick liquid pouring out of my headphones. But the song itself was beautiful as well. There was something chromatic in the chord changes he was using, which reminds me of something like While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles. But the melody was just extremely jazzy. Wouldn't sound out of place in a smoky jazz club somewhere. Yeah, I really loved that one. So let's move on to track 3. It's called Pleamar de águilas. Okay, so that wasn't Spinetta singing that one, was it? On my website here, it doesn't mention any other vocalist, but was that Machi singing? Please let me know in the comments. In any case, the vocals sounded great. There was that one particular section where it really reached a huge climax with harmonies and everything. It sounded beautiful. But yeah, aside from the vocals, I was really pleased to hear more of that syrupy atmosphere continuing from the last track. And the acoustic guitars as well sound wonderful. I'm finding that this is what this album has to offer that we don't really find on either of the other Invisible albums. It's this extremely warm and, like I said, syrupy kind of feeling to this music that perfectly matches the cover art. It's amazing how much it makes sense now, that strange cover art. But it really does feel so warm and thick, just like that image. Another beautiful song. So the next song is another epic track. It's an almost 10-minute long tune. It's track 4 and it's called En una lejana playa del animus. Wow, okay. I really enjoyed that one. Like the first track, this one had quite a complex structure, moving through many different parts with different styles and different moods. But I have to say, I did find this one more immediately enjoyable and memorable. There were several parts of what sounded like jazzy and bluesy improvisation. There were some beautiful sections. I mean, really, there were a couple points in here where I felt I was getting carried away to another world. And that's the feeling you want from this kind of music, absolutely. But then there were also a couple of quite strange riff-based sections, almost a la 𝐾𝐢𝐻. Besides that, some beautiful, passionate vocals by Spinetta. Around the middle, I mean, the level of emotion he was putting out was really massive. Definitely approaching the things he would be doing on 𝐿 for me. And so often with that phasing guitar sound that I love so much, it was making another couple of appearances here on this song. Sounded so good. And plus there are a couple sections where the bass was so heavy. Sounded like he'd put some distortion on the bass and it was just crushing. Sounded great. So that just leaves us with one last track. It's just a short song. It's track 5 and it's called Dios de adolescencia. Oh, I didn't feel quite ready for that to end, to be honest. It was a really nice last song to go out on. Surprisingly complicated for only a 2-minute 45 track actually, but so much to enjoy in it. More than a lot of the rest of the album, it did have a pretty big focus on Spinetta's voice, and I did enjoy that. I'm glad they did that for the end of the album. And I really do like the way that even in a comparatively simple song like this, they still managed to put in such nice musicianship. So many nice little tricks and things to enjoy. It just brings so much color to a song like that. So, having heard the entire 𝐼𝐼𝐵 studio album discography at this point, I'm very happy to say I love this band. I mean, 𝐼𝐼𝐵 really have become one of my favorite bands, and I'm looking forward to hearing the album again already. Like I just said at the end of the last song, I did feel I would have liked a bit more after this album. Suppose because it's only 5 tracks, I felt like I could have taken another one. I would have loved another one. But you know, there's something to be said for an album being concise and just having its strengths. You know, it's better than them putting some kind of filler on an album. And I did feel this album was very strong. Every song had something to say. Every song had its own mood and styles. And all my favorite albums have that every song has its own point to make. So yeah, I love it for that. My favorite tracks were probably Durazno Sangrando, the title track, and Pleamar de Águilas. I just felt that those were the tracks where the mood was thickest, and that was what I found most unique and special about this particular album. But I did enjoy everything on it, and the more extended jams of track 1 and 4 were great fun. I did feel the band felt tighter on this album than on the first album. Like, you can just tell they've been playing a lot together and they've become this really high functioning unit at this point. Even as individuals, the playing of each member is really great, but as a band is where I think they really shine on this one. They just feel so tight. I didn't feel the songwriting was as strong as El Jardin de los Presentes. I mean, not many albums do have as strong a songwriting as that album, but what this album did almost meet that album with was atmosphere. I really felt a magic aura coming from so much of this album, and that's something I'm always looking for in music. It's only my first listen, but I feel I did probably enjoy this one a bit more than the debut. And yeah, as I said, 𝐼𝐼𝐵, what a fantastic band. I know there are some more songs I haven't heard of 𝐼𝐼𝐵. They have a compilation called Los Sencillos, I think. And if you would like, I could make a video listening to those songs as well. I'm interested. I mean, I really feel 𝐼𝐼𝐵 are becoming one of my favorite bands, and I do want to hear everything they ever did at this point. But also I do want to hear more Spinetta. This is not his only project, of course. I did a video on the first 𝐿𝐴lmendra, absolutely adored that album, and I probably would like to hear more 𝐿𝐴lmendra at some point. But I'm especially interested to hear some of Spinetta's solo career. I know that after 𝐼𝐼𝐵 he did 1 or 2 albums that are supposed to be really great, so I will be listening to those. And I'm also looking forward to hearing Spinetta Jade. So let me know what you're looking forward to me listening to from Spinetta next. I do expect to get around to everything at some point, but maybe if I see comments saying one particular album more than others, I'll prioritize that one. And let me know what you think of this 𝐼𝐼𝐵 album and how you would rank their albums. Which one's your favorite? If you're enjoying these videos, please do consider supporting me with the link in the description to buy me a coffee. I'll really appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.